we talked about the body contemplation last week, right? And we talked about the posture, we talked about the breath, and the last thing talking about the body contemplation is a cemetery meditation. And cemetery meditation, of course, is actually very daunting because a lot of us do not like to talk about this word death. You know, I don't like to talk about dying, or don't talk about dying with me. That's why we invented so many new words to replace the word death. You know, kick the bucket, 3 feet down. It's something like that. You know, I don't know whether there are any more of those in the Canadian language, but that's all I knew. You know, kick the bucket, 3 feet down, or passing on. People don't really want to directly address this issue. That's why they create so many different languages, so many new words to replace this particular word. But in the Buddhist teachings, he said this is the one big thing that we really need to work with. So the Buddha said one big contemplation that one need to actually do is the contemplation of death. And one practice of contemplation of death, or one practice of contemplation of a decaying body, is do it in the cemetery. Okay? If you go to Southeast Asia, and actually there are a lot of monks actually do a cemetery meditation. They actually bring their little umbrella, you call it tent in Canada or in America. But the umbrella is big, like the monks sit inside, and there's like a mosquito net and insect repellent net and everything. So they zip up the umbrella, they zip up the net, and they sit inside and sit in the cemetery. Of course, in the old days, bodies are just being carried over to the cemetery and put it there and allowing the body to decay, right? So this is actually a very strong practice for a practitioner who want to do a cemetery contemplation. So they just sit next to the decaying body and just watch. Look at the body to get decay, or look at animals who come and munch on the body, or birds pecking on the body. So it's actually a very strong practice. I remember Ajahn Chah, when he was younger, he talked about this contemplation of death, or contemplation of the body in the cemetery. He was young then. He went to the cemetery when there's dusk, it's dusk time, like late afternoon. He went there and then he saw a family bringing the body. He said, "Oh wow, wonderful! There's a body for me to observe now," right? So he was so happy that there's a fresh, just fresh new body that just die and for him to observe. But when the sun goes down and the cemetery gets darker and darker, he started to get scared. So he started to change his position, and before the family left, the family actually asked him, monk, bhikkhu, Venerable Bhikkhu, can you come and do a chanting for the body? And he said, "Oh, no, I'm here just to, observe. You can do the chanting yourself." So when darkness comes, he actually turned himself away from the body. Rather than looking at the body, he turned his back towards the body because he did not want to face the body. So when darkness came, more and more, he started to get more and more worried, and started to get more and more scared and fearful. I think for us, maybe when we say, "Oh, I don't care, I'm not scared of darkness, I can walk across the cemetery at night." But walking across the cemetery at night, when you compare to sitting in the cemetery, is two different things. Okay? When you sit there and you start to observe that there's a body there, sitting there, lying down, and you start to observe that what's happening to the body, and you start to bring that awareness back to your own self, arousing that awareness in you, that one day you will be like that too. Okay? So he got a little bit worried, he got a little bit scared, and the next morning he left. He managed through the night, he left, and he said, "I'm not going back there again." But you see, this is one very strong practice that bhikkhu actually is recommended to do a lot of times. So eventually he's a very good practitioner. Eventually he thought, well, I need to go back again. So he went back, and luckily the body was still there, okay? And so he looked at the body, and he put himself into the net, and he looked at the body again. And that day, he started to observe the body a little bit more. And he was able to actually observe the body a little bit more. But when darkness came, the same fear arose. So he started to ask himself, why am I scared? Why am I fearful? What's happening? So he started to go inward to actually understand what his own feelings is all about, this decaying body and all that. And he started to actually, come out of that fear. And eventually, for the next, I don't know how many days, I forgot the whole story anyway, but he managed to finish this cemetery meditation. So this cemetery meditation is actually not very, very easy. Of course, it's doable. It's not easy, but it's a very, very strong practice. If you want to try, you don't need to go to the cemetery yet. You can just put yourself out, not in a tent, but in a netted tent that you can see outside, okay? In a tent that you don't see anything, right? You can hear, but in a tent, and you meditate in there, and just being aware of what is happening outside and inside yourself. And this is the one way to practice. And then eventually you can do a cemetery practice. But a cemetery practice is actually you allow yourself to actually watch this body decaying, and then you start to realize that will happen to you one day, and also you start to realize that this body is actually governing by the law of impermanence. Everything keeps on changing, including this precious body, which we think belongs to us. And also, when one starts to look at this decaying body, one starts to realize all my desire, all this sensual desire, being drawn, being attracted by this body, because we think it's sexually appealing. We think it is sexually attractive. But when you are in the cemetery and you look at this decaying body really going down, like it starts to bloat up, initially it starts to bloat up, all this bloating, because of the body, the body starts to decay into becoming fluid. All the muscles starting to decay, becoming fluid. So the body will bloat up first, and then it starts to decay. So the decaying that brings a very strong odor, a very strong smell, and of course the whole body would not decay at the same time. So maybe the face would have a hole here, and the leg would have two holes there, and up and down holes here and everywhere. So you see rotten flesh here, and blood oozing out, and body fluid coming out. So it's really not a very, very nice scene. And then at that time, seeing that scene, you start to realize, hey, why am I so attached to this body? We attach to this body because we have this strong sensual desire. Okay? And you look at that body is just like my body. My body is going to go down like that eventually. So why do I attach? And why do I attach so much to this sensual pleasure? Seeing this will eventually happen. And this is actually impermanent. And no matter how attractive or sexually attractive to me this body is, it's still governed by the law of this impermanence. It still will go eventually degraded. So you start to have that insight and start to understand through this observation. So you start to actually rub down this egoistic view of me myself and me and this body, you start to rub it down. So that's why the Bhikkhu Bodhi said in your slide on the last point, on point 4, he said, in the sight of a corpse, we meet the teacher who proclaims everything formed is impermanent. In the sight of a corpse, we meet the teacher who proclaims everything formed is impermanent. That's why Bhikkhu Bodhi comment. That means looking at a decaying body, actually, he is a great teacher. Because this decaying body is teaching us this law of impermanence. All right? So look at this next slide. That's the skeleton there. Anybody looking at this skeleton have some feeling in your mind? It's just paper, right? It's just printed out paper. It's not a real skeleton, right? So no feeling at all? No? Nothing.
The first would be fear. Fear, Sifu, or like sort of fearful that you're going to turn into that.
Yes, we are eventually going to turn into that. Yeah, we are eventually going to turn. That's the truth. And that's a very, very true truth. It's going to apply to all of us. Okay, so that's why in the old days, even now up to date, nowadays, people, if there's no chance for them to go to a cemetery meditation, people will look at skeleton. And, hang the skeleton in the room and keep, contemplating by looking at the skeleton and contemplating on how this body, the bodily parts is going to decay and disintegrate. And that applies to oneself. I will be like this also, eventually. Nowadays, you cannot buy any more real skeleton anymore. Those are all plastic skeleton. In the old days, when I used to go to school, we have real human skeleton, and you can actually feel the roughness of the bones here and there, and also seeing crevices and orifices, throughout the whole body. So that is actually more real than a plastic one. Of course, seeing a body is more real than seeing a skeleton. Okay, so that's why cemetery meditation is so much stronger than just a skeleton contemplation. Okay, all right. Can we go on now? Okay, now we go to the second foundation of meditation. So there are contemplation of feeling, okay, which is your third slide, I think. Then this contemplation of feeling, you see this word Vedana Nupassana behind the feeling in bracket. Vedana, V-E-D-A-N-A, is a Pali word. Pali, that means an ancient Indian language. Okay, that's what the Buddha used to teach in this language, in the Pali. So I always use some Pali terms so people are used to it. Because with the Pali term, you can, when you start to understand Pali a little bit more, it actually explains a little bit more than just the English translation of the word. Okay, so Vedana Nupassana, that means the contemplation of meditation, the contemplation of feeling. That means the meditation on feeling. And this feeling mostly is actually in the sense of an affective mode or with a hedonic quality. So there are actually three kinds of feelings. The first kind of feelings is the pleasant feeling, like nice, pleasant feeling. Okay, like when we sit in an AC room and it's kind of cool. Okay, when you go out into the heat, it's kind of like unpleasant. Especially in Hong Kong, it's 33 degrees outside with so many high rises, and the air is so stuffy and so humid, and it's sort of like a very unpleasant feeling when I actually landed yesterday in Hong Kong airport. It's such a very sticky and gluey feeling. Okay, it's actually unpleasant feeling. And there is a neutral feeling that, so, nothing, neither pleasant or unpleasant. So these kind of feelings, you can call it, also, you can have a sort of a mental feeling, but also you can have a physical feeling, a pleasant physical feeling, an unpleasant physical feeling, or a pleasant mental feeling, unpleasant mental feeling. Unpleasant mental feeling means like unpleasant emotion, like sadness or guilt. But with this unpleasant emotion, unpleasant mental feeling, it always brings an unpleasant physical feeling. Because the mind and the body are connected like this. So anything arises on the mind will actually manifest itself physically. Okay? So so every feeling arises also depends on the contact. All right? So there is this eye contact with the form or with an object, you can call, with an object, and then there will be a feeling inside the mind, but not on the eye. The eye doesn't have any feeling. The ear doesn't have any feeling. Only the mind will have the feeling. That's a very important point to remember. Okay? So everything arises because there is contact. If there is no contact, there will not be a feeling. Whether it is an emotional, a mental feeling, or a physical feeling, there will be no feeling at all if there is no contact. So you would say, okay, for a blind person, because the eyes cannot see, would the blind person have no feeling?
No.
Through the eyes?
No, the other senses would pick it up.
Say that again, please.
Your other senses would pick up even if you cannot see. Your hearing or your smell would become more acute.
Exactly. But also knowing that even the eye is not functioning as such, but the quality, let's say, actually the function of the eye is only lost in certain level, but in the deeper level, the functioning of the eye won't be lost. I don't know whether you understand me in that point. Like if you close your eyes, are you still able to see?
No.
You can see with your
You're
mind.
not able to see the outside thing.
But you can see with your mind.
But you can see with your. Yeah.
But you will
can see with your.
you will
still
see
project it.
what?
You see with
You
your
will
mind.
see
Yeah.
visions. You will see scenes in your mind, right? Sceneries in your mind. You can still see it.
Even if you,
But-
even if you were born blind, would you not form some sort of mental image of an object? Would that still not be
You would
almost like a
imagine.
sight?
Of course you'd imagine.
That's also the inner seeing, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
That's also the inner seeing. So the function of the mind will not be completely lost, even though one person is blind. Okay? But it will be lost to the outside objects. Right?
Right.
So you will say, okay, so when this mind, when this eye or the sense doors get in touch with something, the eye to the form, the ear to the sound, the nose to the smell, the tongue to the taste, and the body to the touch, and the mind to a thought, to an idea, to a concept, it will create a particular consciousness. There is a particular consciousness that will cognize whatever that it picks up from those sense doors, from those sense faculties. Are you still with me?
Yes.
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 Okay, all right. Okay, good. All right. So that's one very important thing to realize. So this, where am I? So these sense doors are important to pick up the messages from the outside. But when these messages are picked up from the outside and being input into the mind, because of this contact, there will be a feelings arising. Whether it's pleasant or unpleasant. So, because of this pleasant or unpleasant or neutral, each of these feelings will actually stir up those deep hidden rooting, deep hidden defilements in our mind. We call anusala, the sleeping volcanoes inside the mind. What do I mean by that is, for example, the body is in touch with something very pleasant. And there's this pleasant feelings inside. And you say, oh, wow, this is so nice. Wow, so nice. I like it. I love it. Let me have more of that. Okay? Let me have more of that. It's a root defilement that we have. Because of this attachment to this pleasant feeling, and this root defilement will start to arise, will start to have its heads up. And then you will have this idea of, I want more of this pleasant feeling. Okay? So this, we react with the deep hidden defilements of craving to this pleasant feeling. Okay, when this pleasant feeling disappears, it vanishes. Because everything bounds to go. When everything arises, it bounds to go. It's just a matter of time how long they will stay, right? Right?
Right?
Right.
So, when it goes, our mind, because we want more, when it goes, our mind become imbalanced. It's like, no, you cannot go. I don't want you to go. I want you to stay because it's so pleasant, it's so nice. I love it, I like it. But it really has left you. And then you start to crave more. When your craving is not fulfilled, then you will start to react. You start to react with another deep defilements of aversion, ill will. You start to hate. You start to dislike this situation. Oh, I don't like it because it's left me. Come on. How can I get it back? So with craving not fulfilled, you will have aversion. But aversion can arise on its own. Aversion doesn't necessarily has to tie up with craving. For example, when you hear somebody saying something nasty to you through your ears, you pick up these languages. And you say, he's cursing me, or he's insulting me, because you start to judge the words that you heard through the sense doors. Oh, he's judging me, he's cursing me. And then this unpleasant feeling arises in your mind. This unpleasant feeling will start to stir up the pot inside, the deep pot. And what will arise is this habit of reaction with aversion, ill will, animosity, anger. You still with me, right?
Yes.
Okay? So all these root defilements is actually are conditioned by a particular kind of feeling. Okay? Greed with a pleasant feeling, aversion with a painful feeling, and delusion with a neutral feeling. Why neutral feeling is tied into this delusion? Because it's neither pleasant or unpleasant, and you are not paying attention to it. And when somebody is not paying attention to it, and somebody doesn't really know what's going on at that moment, and a lot of times you think, oh, this is what it is, and this is what it is. The mind is deluded. The mind is not clear. The mind is not focused. The mind doesn't understand. So the mind has this kind of delusion and illusion. It's actually, what does it mean by delusion? Illusion is actually people are not seeing the real picture as the real picture. Like, I always like to use the analogy of a mirror. When the mirror is covered with all the dust or specks of, your toothpaste on the mirror, and you look at yourself in the mirror, you see a big dot in your face right here. But is that a big dot in your face? No, it's a speck on that mirror because it's not clean. So you see this big dot on your face right here. It's the speck of toothpaste, right? So you think that's a big dot, and you try to rub it on? You try to clean it? Your mind is off. Your mind is deluded because you're not seeing the real picture. You did not see that big dot of toothpaste on the mirror. But if you start to clean it out, clean the mirror out, and you see, oh, this is clean. If you have a dot right there, and it will show on the mirror. Right? So the mind at that time is not deluded because the mirror is clean. And it reflects whatever that is there. That's the true picture. Okay? So there are, as I said, there are 6 kinds of contacts. The eye contact to the form, the ear contact to the sound, and the nose contact to the smell, the tongue contact to the taste, body contact to the touch, and the mind contact to thoughts, ideas, or concepts, whatever. So each of these, as I said, each of these root defilements is conditioned by a particular kind of feeling. The greed by the pleasant feeling, aversion by the painful feeling, and delusion by the neutral feeling. So that's why the Buddha said to us, why is mindfulness so important? Because without the mindfulness, there's no way that we can break this tie between the feeling and the reaction. Only when we break the tie that we are able to actually stop that reaction. We are actually able to polish down, diminish that the extent of that latent defilement. Sorry. If not, then we will be constantly reacting. Can you give me some examples of this, pleasant feeling, bringing out the latent defilement of craving? Silence is golden. Sorry, silence is not golden here.
We're thinking.
It's Dharma, it's called Dharma sharing. So you have to share.
Chocolates.
Say that.
Chocolates. You have chocolate.
Oh, say it. You have to tell me the story of chocolate. Don't just say chocolate.
Well, you have a chocolate and there's a pleasant feeling arises and you want more. You want one more and then you have pleasant feelings and then you want another one.
And then it turns to awful feelings because you ate too many.
Okay. All right. So anybody else?
And I think you need to share that.
Oh, do I need to share?
Yeah. We're laughing because Lynn said something funny.
I just said
Oh,
if you
Lee
eat
said
too many
something funny, but I
chocolates,
didn't hear it.
I just said if you ate too many chocolates, then you'd feel sick, and it wouldn't feel good anymore.
It would become
I didn't hear.
You would get sick
Chocolate.
if
What
you
did she
ate.
say?
If you couldn't stop
It's-
eating your
It's
chocolates.
fluttering.
Oh, okay.
But anyway, I give you a very good example of this latent defilement. Anorexia. You know what is anorexia, right?
Yes.
people refuses to eat, right? Or obesity, it's the same thing. People refuses to eat or people eat too much. It's the same thing. I'm not laughing at you, Don. I'm sorry.
I'm not looking at you.
What can you do, right? So, this is actually, anorexia has an aversion towards food, whereas obesity has a craving towards food. When people actually, why do they have craving towards food? There is always something more than just craving for food in the mind. Because I've seen people being not obese, but they have a lot of craving for food. But they are skinny. They eat tons of food, but they are very skinny. There is a very strong latent defilement inside the mind that creates a very strong craving for food. And that latent defilement could be anything. Okay? That latent defilement can appears in any form. Maybe a latent defilement of anger towards something, then they replaces the anger with an obsession of food. Does that sound logical?
Mm-hmm.
You have to do this.
Yes.
Otherwise I cannot
Yes.
see. Yeah. Don't pass out, okay? Because if you're too strong, you will pass out like this. But anyway, okay. So that's with anorexia, with people having this aversion towards food. Why? Because there's a deep down feeling of maybe fear. Fear of being overweight. Fear of being unattractive. Fear of not being accepted. So they think that, cutting down on the food, then they will be attractive, they will be accepted. So by wanting to cut down on the food, then they start to develop this hatred towards food. Okay? So that's why cutting down severing the tie between the feeling and the latent of defilement is very important. And with this lifetime, we can do that. And how can we do this? Is we start observing this feeling. The physical feeling is easier to observe because it's either pleasant or unpleasant. The emotional feeling is a little bit, sometimes could be overwhelming to observe. So I would recommend people to go to the physical feeling first. And you use this physical feeling as an object of meditation. Okay? So when you start to observe this physical feeling, and just the way it is, okay, if there's a pleasant feeling, okay, this pleasant feeling arising, and and you start to observe this pleasant feeling, you soon will notice this pleasant feeling will soon go like this. And then maybe another pleasant feeling arises, and then it goes again like this. So when you start to sit there and just observe this physical feeling the way it is, you stop provoking the latent defilement to arise. Logical?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So you become attentive to this arising and this passing of the feelings. You use this as an object, a meditation object. You just pay attention to it. You just keep on paying attention to it. You know it comes and goes, it comes and goes, it comes and goes, it comes and goes. When you develop a little bit more and become more advanced in this practice, the mind becomes stiller, the mind becomes more focused, the mind becomes more concentrated, and the mind becomes more sensitive, then you will start to realize within this arising and passing, there is this changing phenomenon happening. It's not just arising, it's not just passing, but in between, there is this impermanence, there's this changing. And because you start to realize, you start to observe this changing phenomena happening, you start to see, wow, why do I become so attached to things that are actually in this fleeting mode of changing? We start to attach to things because we think we want it to become permanent. But when this impermanence strikes you, and you start to realize, geez, it's impermanent. And why do I have to react like that? We don't have to react like that. Then it starts to actually turn in, and you start to realize, you start to be able to actually weakens the power of this latent defilement, the strength of this latent defilement, layer by layer. Okay, so this is the essence of mindfulness in this aspect. All right, watching this impermanency arising, and you stop to attach to this ego point of view. Is, oh, I am not happy, or I'm hurt by you. Then you start to observe, oh, there is this unpleasant feeling because of these cursing words. And you start to observe. And you start to notice it's gone. This unpleasant feeling is gone in no time. And you stop to attach to this, I am being hurt. Or, this is me, this is mine, this is mine, this is my book. Don't you ever take it away from me. This is my book. Oh, you can have it. No worry. You can have it. You know, and when people take things away, you are hurt, but there's always an unpleasant feeling there. If you start attending to the unpleasant feeling, just the unpleasant feeling, not the way that my book is being taken away by somebody else. And this is my book, or this is my pride, or this is my happiness. And you stop attaching yourself to this is mine, this is me, and this is I. Then this, actually, you're giving yourself a way out, and you are actually removing some of the burdens from all these attachments. When these burdens are removed, you become lighter and lighter. And when your burdens are lighter and lighter, your mind is lighter and lighter also. And because the mind is lighter and lighter, then happiness will come in. Because you feel, oh, it's okay. I lost it. It's all right. He's not talking about me. Or, it's all right if he's talking about me. Okay, thank you. I will check myself. I'll correct myself. I'll change myself. And so you start to treat life in a very different perspective, with a very different perspective. So the Buddha said there are two kind of feelings, the worldly feelings and the unworldly feelings. The worldly feelings is the feelings with the underlying tendencies of greed, hatred, and delusion. That means it's actually a mundane feeling that will drive you to create more, to actually strengthen the latent defilements. But the Buddha said there are also unworldly feelings. The unworldly feelings arise when we watch the worldly feelings and stop reacting to the worldly feelings with a very, very old reactive habitual mind. So the unworldly feelings will arise when you start to just pay bare attention to the worldly feelings. Okay? So the unpleasant and the pleasant feelings come from our own mind. So the responsibility is within us to deal with this. But a lot of times we put the responsibility on others. You are causing me sadness, or you are causing me anger. No, they are just the object of your own anger. They are just the object of your own sadness. They don't directly cause anger. They are just the object, outside object. Okay? So you will stop blaming others for your own unhappiness. And when your mindfulness becomes, you can sustain your mindfulness in a continuity way, then that mindfulness will bring that realization, more and more realization, more and more clarity, and more sensitivity. And then, at that time, you will start to realize all these worldly feelings is not worthwhile to pursue. And then you are willing to go on a less complicated life, a more simple life. Even with food, with clothing, you are willing to go simplicity rather than make it more complicated. Rather than spending 2-3 hours making just a plate of food for yourself, you just go putting all the nutritious food together and look at it. Oh, food is to sustain my body, and I'm grateful to have this food. You just pay attention, mere awareness to whatever the food is for, the purpose of eating, and the purpose of dressing, and the purpose of living. And so, with bare attention, you are actually not attaching this ego view and attaching this greedy mode, and attaching this angry mode, or attaching this deluded mode to anything that you actually come into contact with. So the more you become aware, the more you are able to allow yourself to let go. And the more you will let go, the lighter your burdens will be. The lighter your burdens will be, the happier you will be. Why we are not happy? Because we have so much burdens on ourselves. We can hardly breathe. That's why. That's why we become so heavy and so unhappy. Thank you.